Okay, so here we are. Today is the 7th of August, 2024. And today the sun transitions from the days of ivy into the days of broom. So I'm just going to bring up a PowerPoint presentation and talk us through the days of broom and some esoteric ideas with broom. So this is our third year going around the Ogham Grove. If you want just basic information about broom, you want to look on our YouTube channel for Broom 2022. There's like a basic video there. And then the second year, we looked at herbal medicine. So if you're interested in the apothecary medicinal values of broom and other plants that relate to the days of broom, then you want to look for Broom 2023. So this year, we're looking at what gods and goddesses might correspond with each tree of the Ogham. And I'm going to touch on that a little bit with broom, but there's more esoteric ideas with the star law of broom that are very important, I think. Than corresponding it to a specific deity, though it does fit that way as well. So the days of broom, technically speaking, because we can be precise, because you can look at the year as a circle of 360 degrees. It's how the zodiac looks at it. You have 12 signs of 30 degrees each. So with the Ogham, you have 20 trees with 18 degrees each. So 20 times 18 is 360. So we can be specific about the days of broom. And you can see here that they begin at the middle of Leo. It's actually the 15th degree of Leo, is the midpoint between summer solstice and autumn equinox. And we could call it lunasa. The Gregorian calendar date of 1st of August is out of sync with the sun's journey around the wheel of the year. So technically speaking, today is true solar lunasa, the midpoint between solstice and equinox. So broom goes from this lunasa moment, 15th degree of Leo, to the 3rd degree of Virgo. So broom is mostly Leo the lion and a little bit of Virgo. And that's really important. I'll touch on some of it. So lunasa is important, of course, in Celtic stories. For instance, Gwion Bac is consumed by Ceridwen at lunasa because 9 months later he's born at Beltane. And it says specifically he's inside her for 9 months. So that's a conceiving at lunasa. Tomorrow, of course, is 8th of the 8th, and in modern esoteric ideas, at least from the 1980s, people now call that the Lion's Gate portal. And so that's in the days of broom as well. And it's quite an interesting period of time, as I'll show further on, although not necessarily specifically 8th of the 8th. 8th of the 8th is seen as the high point of a period of time that spans over a few weeks' time, with its height at 8th of the 8th. So it's a window of time rather than one specific day. But the potency for most people and the focus for most people is 8th of the 8th. And it takes us through a very important time for the ancient mystery schools, which is the cusp between Leo and Virgo. And that cusp between Leo and Virgo was the starting point or entry point into many of the ancient mystery traditions. So that's quite interesting too. So lunasa is a festival dedicated to Lu, Celtic god of light. Then you're into the Lion's Gate portal, taking us into the descent into the mystery tradition. So all of that happens in the days of broom. So broom's quite an interesting position in the year's wheel. So here, showing just part of the circular design, at the top is apple, and apple is the conclusion of the second ACMA. It's the summer solstice position. And then after the summer solstice, the energy of the year is descending again. Like all the sap has risen, and then it's going to start decreasing and settling down. And when you get to the kind of 9 o'clock position, you're at autumn equinox, and then the days are darker than the nights are darker than the days. So you can see where we are, right bang in the middle, in between Ivy and Broom. So that cusp between Ivy and Broom is where we are today. And each quarter of the OGHAM wheel year has a mystery thing. And I call this one the descent into the mysteries. And the artwork I show you further on and make more sense of that. So it is very much like the height of summer, hot time of the year, and then the Lion's Gate, Leo the Lion, and then descending into mystery teachings, or like Gwion back being consumed by Ceridwen for 9 months before he's born at Beltane and becomes the Radiant Brow. It's kind of suggestive that the Welsh bards had a kind of mystery rite that concluded at Beltane, and those who achieved it would have Radiant Brow. Also, so then looking at deities that correspond with each tree, this is the wheel quick sketch of the classical world. And primarily Leo was relating to Apollo. But the second half, well, Broom is still that solar Apollo connection. So she's very leonine and fiery, solar, golden, and most Celtic goddesses are solar and relating to gold and the sun and the summer solstice. But she does have a foot in Virgo, and we'll look at Virgo more with Blackthorn. And Virgo in the ancient world was Ceres and Demeter, grain goddesses, cereal goddesses, and primarily they're the goddesses that were used in the Eleusinian mysteries and so on. And Ceridwen is a Welsh variant of Ceres. So simplistically then, in the OGHAM grove, there's a natural pattern that occurs, and it's that Broom, Blackthorn, and Elder all have their feet on Virgo. You know, the zodiac signs are 30 degrees, the trees are 18 degrees. So Broom, you can see, is golden haired. She's mostly Leo the Lion, but she does have her toes on Virgo. And Blackthorn is Virgo completely. So that's the mother goddess, the cereal goddess. So this pattern creates a kind of maiden, mother, crone pattern of trees, if you like. And Elder is half Virgo, half Libra. She's the last 9 degrees of Virgo and the first 9 degrees of Libra. So she holds the autumn equinox transition. But mystery schools were usually harvest related, and they correspond with the cusp between Leo and Virgo. So a quick reminder of the stars of this third ACMA. So that's the third quarter of the OGHAM, which is the vine tree, the ivy, the broom, the blackthorn, and the elder. And this star map illustration depicts that entire quarter. So in the top right-hand corner, you can see it says Cancer for Cancer the crab. And that's the head of the Hydra. And if you follow the water serpent all the way to the left, that's actually taking you to the stars of Libra. So where we are at the moment, we're in the middle of that serpent with the golden chalice, the golden vessel known as a crater. And the constellation that's on the back of the water hydra or water serpent is Crater the wine mixing vessel. And it's the origin of many Holy Grail stories. The Holy Grail stories are different motifs from ancient mystery traditions that were retold as romance in the medieval days. So I'll touch on some of that and I'll give you some pointers. But primarily for the days of Broom, we're now at the midpoint of Hydra the water serpent, looking at Crater the golden wine mixing cup, or the heavenly grail. So this is an illustration. Here's a more specific star map of the area. Now, the head of Hydra is hidden behind our faces, but you can see a curving line of dashes, and it says ecliptic. So that curved line of dashes is the path that the sun makes as it goes round the zodiac. And so we're right there underneath Leo, heading towards Virgo. And so what I've circled with a yellow circle is an interesting place where the ecliptic and the equator cross over each other. And you can see below the circle, Crater, the constellation of the wine mixing vessel. Further on, when we get to the next Zoom session with Blackthorn, there's Corvus the crow. So you often have Corvus the crow and Crater the wine mixing cup, or a raven and a cauldron next to each other. And that's a recurring motif in stories and in iconography. So right now then, this kind of transition between Leo and Virgo, which is held by Broom, corresponds with the Lion's Gate. So it's interesting that the Lion's Gate 8-8 might seem fairly modern, New Age even, but it's echoing or a continuation of ancient mystery schools when people descended into mystery traditions at the Leo-Virgo cusp. So you're only arguing over a matter of days, really, as to when that happened. Some traditions might even have begun at Lughnasadh, that these are ceremonies over a period of time. So it fits in with the Lion's Gate, which is tomorrow. Here's a illustration then. It's one of only a few that I've done. I'm really interested in doing illustrations for the OGHAM Grove based purely on star law and each position of the tree. So you can see clearly the 18 degrees of Broom, Blackthorn and Elder, and how they sit on Virgo. And you can see Leo the lion and the big wine cup and Corvus the crow. And touching Elder's dress, you can see the tail of Hydra the water serpent. Hydra the water serpent carries on. So looking at the golden maiden then, she's holding a spear, and that's for lunasa, the spear of Lu. And where the position of the spear is the 15th degree of Leo. So this artwork's been defined by Celtic fire festival and various constellations. Virgo always holds an ear of wheat, so the middle figure has a big bushel of wheat, and the elder figure on the right is holding the scales of Libra. So this is all pure star law, incorporating the trees as personalities, if you like. So the rest of this talk is to look at the personification of the Broom maiden or the lion maiden. And because of Crater the wine mixing cup, I call her the Grail maiden, because the Crater is described as the heavenly Grail, heavenly as in stars. It's the Grail in the stars. And we've looked at it in lots of other videos, so I don't want to be too repetitive. Lunasa then is in between Ivy and Broom, and we touched on it with the Ivy Zoom session. Obviously, The festival is named after Lugh, but ivy and its preceding tree, vine, are all Dionysus and Bacchus, and of course they're the Greek Roman deities of the mystery traditions, and so the festival of Lunasa following ivy is really interesting in that context. So just to simplify things, I see Lunasa as a kind of time of sacred marriage, or a hieros gamos between god and goddess. And we went through the days of Feast Day of Mary Magdalene in ivy as well. So I just call ivy Lord and broom lady, and that Lunasa is a marriage between the Lord and the lady. So that's what the first image is kind of depicting, if you like. Sacred marriage, sacred union. Specifically in Welsh mythology, there is a goddess who was created of the flowers of broom. Broom is unique to a goddess called Blodeuedd. She was actually made as a bride for the summer king, Llai, and she was created from the blossoms of oak, broom, and meadowsweet, and they're all summertime blooms. So she had to be made in the summertime, and her would-be husband is the summer king, Llai. Many other Celtic goddesses, especially in Wales, are often described as having hair the colour of broom. Like broom is this kind of idealized golden blonde hair colour for lots of sovereignty goddesses. It's a recurring feature in medieval stories. There is interesting star law patterns with it as well. Broom is directly opposite alder, and the alder tree is the story of Bran and Branwen in the Mabinogion, and part of their story is the intrigue of the cauldron of renewal. So the heavenly cauldron, or wine mixing vessel, is directly opposite the days of alder. There is some sort of marriage there. And curiously, Bran and Branwen, Bran means crow or raven. So the crow and the cauldron are in the story of the alder tree. And in Ceridwen's story, which relates more to Virgo proper, Blackthorn, she has a cauldron, of course, Ceridwen's cauldron, and she has a son called Morvran, and Morvran means the great crow or the great raven. So they're right there with her too, in that kind of cauldron portion of the night sky. So it's just an example of star law motifs being used in Brythonic bardic traditions of Wales. It may be in Irish law. I just don't know the Irish stories well enough yet. I know the Welsh Brythonic ones better. But this is played out in the modern era, Aquarian age. If I go back to here, alder is between Aquarius and Pisces, just like broom is between Leo and Virgo. And right now, and for the next 2000 years, you know, Aquarius, with the age of Aquarius, is pouring waters down into the heavenly cauldron. And the cauldron is with Leo. Leo governs the heart in zodiacal astronomy. So this heavenly Grail is actually within every living being at the heart center, receiving Aquarian waters for the next 2,500 years. So that symbolism of Broom being the Grail maiden, directly opposite Aquarius pouring its waters, is really potent imagery, you know. And from a Celtic perspective, the Aquarian age waters are being poured by Brigid, Bridie, Brigantia, because Aquarius holds Imbolc directly opposite Lunasa. You know, there's a relationship then between the festival of Bridie, Brigid, and the festival of Lugh, another kind of alchemical marriage, if you like. You know, the god and goddess of light and inspiration and so on. So if you go on the YouTube channel, I've already done a video, it's over an hour long, about the Holy Grail and its star lore. So if you're interested in that, you can go and watch a whole hour about the star lore of the Holy Grail. And I wax lyrical about other intrigues with it. So sticking with Broom, the simple motif of the star lore is Leo the lion and Virgo the virgin. So just a lion and a virgin maiden, or a lion and a maiden, is an ancient symbol. You know, on the left here, it's the tarot card strength is always depicting a lady and a lion. It's that cusp between Leo and Virgo. And that relationship of a divine female and lions goes way, way back. On the right-hand side is the famous Burney relief, which is thought by most people to represent Lilith, the first wife of Adam. But it might not be Lilith. It could easily be Ishtar or Inanna. That's just Lilith is favored. But she's standing on a pair of lions. And that's very Mesopotamian to do twin animals. So there's 2 owls and 2 lions. They were really interested in symmetry. So they often had like mirror image animals. That's a thing of Mesopotamia. And it carries on through. So this is Persian. This is the goddess Anahita riding on a lion. And she's thought to be a Persian adaptation of Ishtar, Inanna. And she's in ancient Egypt as well. So again, there's a goddess here riding on a lion. And don't tell Rosemary to look to the left because there's a pointy thing, you know. But a recurring thing then. So all the way from Mesopotamia to ancient Egypt, through to Renaissance tarot cards. So for the Leo maiden of the Well Maidens of the Summerlands Oracle deck, which I recently had published, the Leo lady is with the lion on the left-hand side, like the traditional tarot card strength, really. And her second image clearly depicts a crater, a wine mixing cup. So you've got in the Well Maidens deck, you've got crater next to the lion in the 3 cards for Leo. I don't know if you can see it, but this is a real churchyard in Somerset called King Weston Churchyard. And that old cross is there. And the eagle is landing on the cross deliberately because in the Glastonbury zodiac, the top of the cross is the phoenix. And so I used an eagle to represent the phoenix. But the churchyard cross represents the waters of Aquarius falling down to crater the wine mixing cup in Leo the lion. You know, so those ideas are there in that as well. So the crater then, what is a crater? Well, it might even ring echoes of Jesus turning water into wine at the wedding of Cana, whatever it's called. The crater was used in most mystery cults to create the brew of the mysteries, and it was specifically for diluting wine with water. In the ancient world, wine was very thick and gloopy, almost like syrup or jam, and so they would dilute it with water. But then each mystery cult had its secrets, so they'd be adding things to it to increase its potency or visionary capabilities. So they might be adding mushrooms or other intoxicants, you know, that are going to help the participants of the mysteries have visions and so on. So the crater was always an important part of mystery cults. Is it part of Celtic mysticism? Well, that's very interesting. Last session, I showed a crater from from Burgundy in France. So at first, I haven't had a lot of time to look into it. At first, I got very excited because I thought, oh, this is a crater in Celtic lands. And it is from Celtic lands. and it's from a very, very long time ago, 500 BC. And it was found in France, in Burgundy, but it is Greek. So it was actually brought, 2,500 years ago from Greece to Burgundy and buried in the grave of some royal female. They call her the Lady of Vix, or the Priestess of Vix, or the Princess of Vix, Vix. And this is the crater of Vix. It's a fascinating object. It's huge and it's really intricately detailed. It carries 11,000 liters. It's huge. It's as tall as a person, this thing, and it's made of bronze. So it's not specifically Celtic, but 400 years later, there's the Gunderstrup cauldron, equally complicated in its design. And then in the medieval days, there's all sorts of legends and stories about mystical cauldrons. So the Greek influence on the Celts is interesting. The Druids refused to put anything in writing, according to Julius Caesar. And he says that they used the Greek language for trade, so that they would trade with other countries using Greek as a common tongue, if you like. And that's a mad thought, to think that Greek was being spoken in the British Isles many, many centuries before the English language was being spoken, so interesting. The Greek influence is definitely there upon the Celts, especially on the Mediterranean coastline of Gaul and around the Iberian Peninsula. But I don't know enough about it. It's research to do. But an incredible thing. There's horses and kind of Trojan soldiers and some strange goddess figure on each handle. Incredibly ornate. So just quickly then, this is just another glimpse then of suggestion of mystery traditions in the Northwest Europe, Britain and France and so on. So this is the Mithraic rock birth again from Hadrian's Wall. So that's 4th century Britain. And we observed earlier in the year that his sword is pointing to the cusp between Gemini and Cancer the Crab. So that's specifically the summer solstice. And we saw that there was Irish stories about the Second Battle of Moytura that relate to a sword and the star law leading up to the summer solstice. So that's quite intriguing. And it also corresponds with the sword that decapitated John the Baptist, who's celebrated at summer solstice as well. So there's all this kind of sword and summer solstice stuff going on. In his other hand, as we look at it on the right-hand side, in his left hand, he's holding a torch, a fiery torch. And he's specifically, like the sword, holding it between Leo the lion and Virgo. So he's holding the torch at that gateway between the lion and the maiden, what I call the descent into the mysteries. And the reason for that is you need a torch to guide the way when you're going down into the darker half of the year, down into the darker season, or down into the underworld. So statues of Hecate carrying torches, it's the same thing. It's either nighttime mysteries or twilight mysteries or the darker half of the year mysteries that needs to be illuminated with a torch. Of course, on the left-hand side, energy is rising up to summer solstice, and on the right-hand side, the energy is all descending down into the depths of the earth. So once you get primed with some of those ideas, then you can find references by just being a bit more cryptic with other statues from the Celtic world. So this is called the Reims altar, and it's from Gaul, from the 3rd or 4th century. But what it is, it's canonus, that's straightforward enough, depicted between Apollo, who plays the harp, and Mercury, who has the caduceus. So there's only one place in the whole year where Apollo, i.e. the sun, and Mercury are side by side, and that's Leo and Virgo. Virgo's governed by Mercury, Leo's governed by the sun. So Canunus is actually sitting here at that Leo-Virgo cusp. It's interesting. So he's sitting at the beginning of mystery tradition time of year. Some scholars think that he's pouring money out of a sack, but it's not, it's grain. There's a rat at the top tempted by the grain, and the two animals are eating the grain. So again, it's evidence of it being the harvest time, the cereal time. No. And of course, we've learned from other studies that the antlers represent the winter time of the year, as opposed to the bull's horns as well. So he's holding this descent gateway corresponding with the lion's gate and so on, descending down into the mystery times. So just before I finish, I mean, you can get deep with all of that. There's basic star lore, there's star lore patterns in iconography. And then what do you do with that? Well, mystery traditions work internally. So there's external star lore, cosmology, which can be internalized through visionary work. From ancient, well, from medieval Ireland, there's the manuscripts about the three cauldrons, which is a system I work with, but the three cauldrons is quite universal. And it's significant to this because from a Chinese perspective, it's to do with qi and energy moving around the body, which is often equated with sunshine or fire, like it's an internal heat in the body. Well-being, i.e. simplistically, if a body's cold, it's dead. If it's warm, it's alive. So it's this kind of life force heat idea. In the Irish manuscript, it describes the top cauldron for most people being upside down, which is how it is on the Kabbalistic tree of life on the right-hand side. And the Irish poets were working their magic system to try and turn the upper cauldron upwards. And if they could turn it upwards, then they can receive imbus, divine inspiration, and have divine words and poetry and song, which you can't have if the upper cauldron is turned downward. They're very similar to the Kabbalistic esoteric ideas of trying to get to Kether and the limitless light. Same difference, really. The interesting thing then is that from a zodiacal perspective, different zodiac signs correspond with parts of the body, like the neck is Taurus, and Cancer, the crab, is the breasts, and Pisces is the feet. The three fire signs are the three cauldrons. Aries governs the head, Sagittarius governs the thighs, and the thighs generate the heat for the lower cauldron. But most importantly for Broom is that Leo governs the heart. So Leo and the Leo Maiden, the Grail Maiden, governs your middle cauldron and the well-being of your middle cauldron. So however you want to work with that esoterically, it's very potent, especially if you think of the goddess Brigid pouring waters down into the cauldron inside everybody's heart for the next 2,500 years. So just very quickly, these are two diagrams of the zodiacal nature of the three cauldrons. So the upper cauldron is a pattern known as the sun cross. The sun cross is the two equinoxes and two solstices, and they divide the year into 6 months of darkness and 6 months of light. So you can see that as the brain being left brain, right brain, or sun and moon, or awake and asleep. Those are those ideas for the upper cauldron, governed by the fire sign of Aries, spring equinox. The middle cauldron is the royal star cross, and that actually corresponds with Imbolc, Beltane, Lunasa, and Samhain, and the waters of Aquarius being poured into Crater, the wine mixing cup. So that's all of the star lore for the middle cauldron. The lower cauldron is the remaining 4 signs, which is Sagittarius opposite Gemini and Virgo opposite Pisces. And that's deep esoteric star lore about the infinitely deep well of inspiration. You know, it's got Pisces, the fish, which is salmon, the salmon of wisdom, and so on. And yeah, so you can get as esoteric as you like with just each of the 3 cauldrons. You could do a whole workshop just on the lower cauldron, looking at that star lore, you know, and how energy is recycled through the body. Simplistically, then, is that the middle cauldron is where we're at with Broom, is all about the Irish. I can't pronounce it, but the English translation of the Irish for the middle cauldron is the cauldron of vocation. But it could be called the cauldron of your purpose, your calling. Why did you incarnate? What is it that you came here to do? And if you're not following your vocation, not following your life's purpose, you're never going to be right. So it's really big stuff. I call it the soul's compass. My friend Laura Murphy refers to it as Daan, D-A-N. Daan has many meanings, but it's also your unique gift and your calling and your purpose. And if you're not following your Daan, if you're not following your life's purpose, you're always going to feel like you're in the wrong place. You're always going to feel discontented, that you should be doing something else, somewhere else. That, you know, it's only when you're following your Daan that you are truly alive and living your purpose. So that's huge. Most people, a lot of people don't know what their true vocation is. You know, why did you come here? What are you here for? What should your unique gift be putting out into the world? You know, because that's the only way you're going to have fulfillment, contentment. You know, so it's huge stuff, really. So it's worth meditating with Broom as the Maiden of the Grail, to know thyself before you descend into the mystery traditions. That's kind of the song of the days of Broom. So I'll stop sharing and you can put your microphones on and we'll chat about those ideas. There's a lot there, isn't there? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a lot there. I have a question on Blodeuedd. You referred to her as, in the Welsh, as a goddess, the bride of the Summer King, right?
Yeah.
And she's made of broom, made of flowers.
Yeah. Oak, broom,
is
meadowsweet.
And meadowsweet. Yes. What was the king's name, the Summer King's name?
He has 3 words.
Okay.
It's like and I'm not completely confident about how they're pronounced, but the first word is Llai, double L-E-U, Llai.
L-L-E-U.
Yeah. So I'd just cop out and say Llai rather than trying to say his whole name. And the second name is double L-A-W. That might be Chlor or something. And then the last name is Geefs, G-Y-F-F-E-S. These are medieval Welsh names, you know.
Yeah, I'll bet it. Okay.
Yes. So Llai, Llaw, Geefs or something. But I just say Llai because also I kind of see him as a variation of Lugh. So Lugh or
and
Llai.
That's the sacred marriage of the land and the the vitality.
A common motif with the goddess of nature is she's often the love interest between 2 male would-be consorts.
Right.
And so that's played out in Blodeued's story. She is initially created, the mother of Llai is the goddess Arianrhod.
Right.
And she puts a curse on him because she's mothered by grudge. She doesn't want to acknowledge him. And her brother Gwydion is trying to make her acknowledge her son. And so she's being tricked and tricked and tricked. So finally she gets fed up and she says he will never marry a woman of the race that currently lives on the world. So then Gwydion thinks, right, he goes and talks to his uncle and they come up with a plan to make Llai a wife out of flowers. So they're making a body for a fairy to enter, sort of thing.
Wow.
So she's kind of an arranged marriage. She's created to be this wife for the sun god, which is, you know, questionable or it's okay, but it's just a seasonal story. And
Right.
Llai is just the summer king. He's just one half of the year. And then one day he's away and she sees a hunting scene go by. And that's always a motif for the Winter King. So first of all, she sees a stag running by, and then stag is being hunted by the Winter King, who's called Gronwa Pibra. Anyway, as soon as Blodeuedd and the Winter King see each other, they fall in love. Absolutely fall in love. Straight away that night, they get into bed together and they've got no eyes or thoughts for anybody else. You know, she's totally smitten with him. And then they conspire to kill the Summer King, you know, and that's a long part of the story. And eventually the Summer King is killed. But then the Summer King is found as a wounded eagle in an oak tree and brought back to life. And then the Summer King kills the Winter King. So it's this kind of seasonal exchange.
This isn't the one where he curses her to be a stag and
No. So when they first make her, and this is a bardic play on words, when they first made her, they called her Blodeuedd with a Y for yellow, Blodeuedd, and that means flowers. And then when the wizard is angry, he curses her and turns her into an owl to live in the darkness of night for the rest of her time, you know. And he says, from now on, you'll be called Blodeuedd with a W.
Now I get it.
Yeah, with a Y, her name just means flowers, and with the W, it means flower face, which is a nickname for the barn owl. You know, so yeah.
Cool.
So if you say Blodeuedd with a W, you're talking about the owl. If you say Blodeuedd with a Y, you're talking about the flower maiden.
Got
So
it. Thank
different
you,
halves
sir.
of the year.
Hi, Franklin.
Hi, great to see everybody.
Hi there, Franklin. I can't let people in when I'm recording.
I know, but
Yeah.
thanks for letting me in later.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry I'm late. I was so looking forward to this. Thank you. I just left a link to Robin Williamson doing an incantation of Blodeuedd that he did for a
Cool.
production of the Mabinogion. It's really, really good. So check out that link.
Okay.
I was at Jim's recently and he had a novel called The Owl Service, which was made into a TV film in the 1970s. And it's a modern day, well, 1970s modern day story based on the story of Blodeuedd.
Wow.
And well, saying too many spoilers, but her ghost has been in turmoil for hundreds and hundreds of years, and some young people in the 1970s kind of take on the personifications of Blodeuedd and her two lovers, and there's a unfolding and a kind of poltergeist activity that goes nuts, and it only calms down when she gets what she wants, and what she wants is to not be the owl but to just be the flowers.
Right.
You know, so it's like a undoing of the curse upon her.
Huh.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
a
know.
potent story.
Yeah.
There's a lot there to unpack with that crater, the crater of Vix. Is that it? Wow, is that something else?
And that's 500 BC.
Yeah,
Why would a Celtic tribe on the
need
west
that.
side of the Alps want a crater the size of a human being? It's
Big
not,
party.
not just to invite your friends for dinner, is it? You know, it's a huge thing, 1,000 liters.
Wow.
Yeah.
On the lid, on the top of the lid, there is a little image. What's that? Is that a goddess?
Yeah, it's like a
Uh-huh.
little figure, isn't it? There
Yeah.
are a lot of photos on the internet. So if you just go on Google Pictures and put crater, spell it with a K,
Ah,
Krater of Vix, and that's VIX. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing Vix right. It might be V.
mhm.
It's French, isn't it? You know,
Oh,
but
yeah.
it was a female burial with lots of interesting artifacts, a wonderful golden torque and stuff. So she was a very wealthy female, about 30 years old, and she was buried 500 BC.
And it's made from bronze.
It's
It must
bronze.
absolutely weigh a
A
ton.
ton.
Yeah.
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 Can you imagine? And the actual making of it must have been extraordinary.
Yeah.
And
They-
carrying it.
They think
Transporting.
it was brought to Burgundy in 7 pieces and assembled when it got there,
Wow.
you know. But that's
Is that not,
that's
is that not
potentially
an,
400 years older than the Gunderstruck cauldron.
Wow.
Oh.
is that not far away from Avalon? Is that they're in the same
So I
where
don't
it
know.
was found?
I don't know the geography well enough, but it's in North Burgundy.
Yeah, I see.
I think Avalon is middle-ish, but I'm not certain.
Mhm.
When was this crater found?
In Burgundy, there's a whole
Maybe.
there's a whole settlement, Franklin, called VIX, VIX. So you could instead of you can also Google the VIX grave and you'll get stuff as well. Yeah. It was a huge Celtic settlement. So, you know, sometimes she's obviously aristocratic or even regal or something, you know.
Empress.
Yeah. They've never found craters that big anywhere else, you know.
Pretty important.
Yeah. So she might have been the original Broom Maiden.
Well, you're drawing. I have a copy of that, the Broom, Blackthorn, and Elder.
Yeah.
You know, where the one presentation you did where you showed it, the 3 Maiden, Mother, Crone, or with the darkening of the veil on Elder. I just love that. I really do. I mean, that speaks so well. You really got the essence of that when you drew that.
Here's a funny thing, and this is going back to 2008 when I took part in my very first 3 Cauldrons workshop. I was just an attendee learning about them. And we did a kind of shamanic journey to your upper cauldron and then a journey to your middle cauldron and so on. And you just had to imagine how your cauldron was as a landscape. So you're not specifically looking for a bowl, you're just looking for what is the landscape like in your cauldrons, sort of thing. Anyway, when I did my middle cauldron and I was kind of coming back out of the journey, I felt like yellow flowers were shoved in my chest and were coming out of my chest. And at that time, I didn't know what broom was, so I thought it was jasmine. And I just said it's like jasmine stalks coming out of my chest. Now I would think it's broom, you know, because I've learned the OGHAM trees, you know, but really interesting, that kind of golden flower in your heart center
Mhm.
was correct, you know, even though it took me years to make sense of it.
I recall on my trip to Europe, to England specifically, and going towards, you know, some of the standing stones and Avebury and all that, there were fields and fields of this yellow, beautiful flower, but they called it rape. Is
That's
that
a-
right?
Yeah,
Yes,
that's rapeseed. Yeah, they make oil
modern
from it,
agriculture.
MD. Yeah, it is beautiful.
And what is that? That's used for oil?
Oil.
Yeah, they use it for cooking, you know, like you
Okay.
do olive oil. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that.
But broom looks nothing like that.
No.
So,
Broom's more of a, I think rapeseed only grows about maybe just above my knees. It's not a high plant.
right.
I've seen broom bushes on the Isle of Jersey, maybe 9 foot high. It can grow quite tall. And it can
Lovely.
also be mistaken for gorse. But
Yes,
Ah,
but
but
it's
gorse,
so soft, isn't it? Gorse is so prickly and hard.
yeah,
And
that's the
broom
difference.
is really soft. You know, the whole thing is soft and flowing.
It's
That
long,
picture behind you is very good.
yeah, it's
yes,
long,
it is.
long,
Yeah.
thin stems with no thorns. And they
Mm.
used to dry the stems and tie them together and make a broom. That's the,
Oh,
Surely.
you make a broom from broom.
oh,
So it's the plant of the witch's broomstick.
It's what we fly on. Yes.
Mm,
A broom will fly.
zoom on a broom.
Yes. Oh,
Yuri, have you had a chance to look at the images around the top of that crater? Do they signify anything? Do you know?
I meant to look before this session, but I've been so busy with the goddess conference, and I kind of stepped back because I read that although it was found in Burgundy, it was brought there from Greece. So I kind of thought, oh, well, it's not Celtic iconography, then it's just Greek iconography. There's nothing wrong in that. It could be really meaningful, but it kind of took my momentum away because I was busy, and I'll look at it in more detail later. So
didn't
mainly
it have some Roman stuff around it?
it's Greek soldiers, horses, and chariots. And the soldiers have got those big Trojan plumes on their helmets.
Yes.
Stuff. The number of chariots and horses might be significant to something like the turning of the year. And the two big handles have a definite, powerful goddess face on them.
Virgo.
Yeah.
yeah. The
It look-
handles, Yuri, I thought, I don't know if I'm right, but it looked as though she almost had a coin or something on her mouth.
Yes, she's sticking her tongue out like carving.
Is it the sun coming out of her mouth? I don't know.
Yeah.
I was
And
very drawn to the mouth.
it looked a bit like serpent legs as well, like the
Yes.
Gnostic figure of
Absolutely.
Abraxas has snake legs. You know,
Yes.
very strange.
Melusina, maybe?
Melusine type, yeah. It could be
Mhm,
that could
mhm.
imply a river goddess or water nymph or something.
And perhaps those holes were, you know, accessed by lifting something and they spouted the wine. Who knows?
Or if it's an obvious crater, could the snake represent Hydra, the water serpent, in some way?
That's true too.
Just thinking out loud, really.
The Pisces Virgo axis?
Yeah. Yeah. Maiden and fish tails. Yeah. That's Melusine then.
And that's spring, right on the cusp of spring.
Yeah. So we were looking at, Franklin, you missed it. We were looking at the old diagram of how Broom is opposite Alder. So Bran and Branwen connecting with the cauldron of renewal. That's the kind of polarity of the Star Lord there.
Beautiful. Mhm. And there's your renewal, the new year.
Yeah. Okay, then, time to meditate. You can turn, I'll stop recording and you can put your microphones off whilst we meditate.